This is the last video this year, and I decided to make a selection of the most interesting, in my opinion of course, news stories that I covered in 2025. By the way, please leave a comment about which urban news story as you think is the most important this year and whether it made it into this video. And before we begin, of course, I'd like to thank everyone who watched and commented on my videos, and a special thanks to those who supported me on Patreon and YouTube. Meanwhile, in Canada, the government of Quebec, the city of Quebec and CDPQ Infra have signed agreements to develop the Tram Cité de Quebec project. It includes construction of a 19-kilometer line with 29 stops that will connect the districts of Le Jardin, Sainte-Foy, Université Laval, Parliament Hill, Saint-Roch and Scharsburg. The project is estimated at 675 million Canadian dollars, of which the city's contribution will cover 50% of the costs of preparatory works and other activities under its responsibility. In addition to providing Quebec with a modern transportation network, the project will stimulate implementation of private planning projects totaling more than 15,000 housing units, with an estimated value up to 4 billion Canadian dollars along the tram route. Tram Cité de Quebec project is part of the bigger plan, which will create 100 kilometers of public transport corridors in 3 phases to provide new, efficient, fast and frequent transit services. Meanwhile, in Paris, they celebrated the opening of the Villejuif-Gustave-Roussy station between the Olympic Stadium and Orly Airport, making the last station of the Line 14 Southern Extension completed ahead of the 2024 Paris Olympics. And this station is an important milestone in development of the metro network, which will be extended with 4 additional lines by 2031. Its design, which has 9 underground levels and platforms at a depth of 50 meters, was developed by the bureau of French architect Dominique Perrault. The station looks really impressive inside, but why is this sign hanging behind the column? I think it's quite strange. Currently, the station has started serving passengers on the Line 14, and in the summer of 2026 it will also serve line number 15. And we start with a real sensation, and this time it is not my fantasy, but a real news story. In Canada, the government of Justin Trudeau has launched a 6-year plan to design a high-speed rail line that will connect Quebec and Toronto. I think Mr. Trudeau just subscribed to my channel, watched the video with the fake news, and was like, really? Why we haven't done this yet? The new rail line will run all-electric trains along 1,000 kilometers of tracks, reaching speeds of up to 300 kilometers per hour, with stops in Toronto, Peterborough, Ottawa, Montreal, Laval, Trois-Rivières and Quebec City. Unfortunately, fake London was left out, so there is still a space for improvement. Once completed, the new line will take passengers from Montreal to Toronto in 3 hours, about half the time it takes to travel by car and twice the speed of current via rail trains. Funding for the initial development phase will be spread over 6 years starting this year, but it is expected that the design phase may only last 4 to 5 years. Well, that's a great news. We'll keep our fingers crossed and follow the project's development, of course. City Rail Link, which is developing a new $3.1 billion double-track railway under Auckland Central City in New Zealand, has launched the first test train into the new tunnel. The 3-car electric train traveled along the 3.5-kilometer tunnel section heading south from Waitemata Station through the new Te Waianrotiu and Karanga'ape metro stations to Maugawau Station on Auckland's west-north line. Oh, the train was crawling just like a snail at a maximum speed of 5 km per hour while engineers checked the gaps and correct functioning of the power supply and signaling systems. Further tests will take place to ensure that trains can move seamlessly between the new 11-kilometer line and the wider network. These will include brake tests on one of the steepest gradients in New Zealand, recovery procedures, and the start of driver training. Passenger service on the new line is scheduled to begin next year. A new trolleybus system has begun serving passengers in the French city of Nancy, marking the opening of a new chapter in the city's transportation history. By the way, Nancy is known for having a TVR system from 2000 to 2023, which could travel in both conventional trolleybus and tram mode, holding onto the central rail. But due to reliability problems and frequent derailments, they eventually decided to stop using it and modernized to use classic trolleybuses. Along the way, they partially used the existing contact network, which made the modernization cheaper. In the city center, the catenary and rails were dismantled so that the trolleybuses could run on battery power. In general, the contact network is distributed in such a way that trolleybuses can move without stopping and keep the battery charge at the proper level. To operate the line, the city purchased 25 double-articulated trolleybuses as light tram 25, which, as the name applies, are 25 meters long, and their total cost was 35 million euros. The total length of the line is just under 10 kilometers, of which 7.6 are dedicated lanes, and its development cost the city 47 million euros or 4.8 million euros per kilometer, which is 4 to 6 times cheaper than a similar tram line. The stop pavilions were designed by the architectural studio of Norman Foster, and also 317 new trees were planted along the line. In Mexico City, they built the super narrow office tower Ferrocarril de Cuernavaca 780, one side of which is only 4 meters wide. This small piece of land, squeezed between a one-way street and a railway track leading to a local bread factory, was hardly a convenient location for new construction. But in the end, a 13-story tower designed by the architecture firm Hema was built on it, which looks like someone cut out a piece of Miss Wonderworld skyscraper and landed it in the Nuevo Polanco district of Mexico City. The tracks have been out of use for several months now after years of complaints from residents about noise, but the architects still provided thick soundproof glass on the side of the tracks so that if the trains resume, it won't be a problem for the building's tenants. Another limitation of the site was the underground pipes of the Pemex oil company, and the architects turned the area above them into a small public space so that the pipes can be accessed if necessary. A cafe opened on the ground floor of the building, and the surrounding area smoothly flows into Linear Park Cuernavaca, a 2.8-mile-long landscape park in the Highland style that stretches along the rail tracks. By the way, this project developed in 2017 and seems to be worth a separate video. An underground parking garage for 126 cars was built under the building, which, because of its narrowness, is 36 meters deep. And due to the same reason, it was impossible to arrange a ramp, so this garage uses a robotic car loading system. Well, it's not very sustainable, but at the time of planning, Mexico City had quite a strict requirements for the number of parking spaces, and the building had to meet them. Due to various difficulties, the project lasted for 8 years and its function changed somewhat in the process. Initially, it was planned to be used as an office center, but later the decision was changed, adapting the space for various commercial purposes, including doctors' offices and training studios. In the end, according to the architects, this change was better for the neighborhood because the offices would have been empty after a certain hour, but now the building has more life. Meanwhile, the first train for the Bogota metro is already undergoing testing in China. The metro line itself is currently under active construction, and train production is one of the key steps towards its completion. Bogota's mayor Carlos Fernando Galan shared a video of the process on his page on X and also wrote that the new train isn't made of cardboard. But why? Why did he write that? Is this supposed to be such a unique feature? In total, Line 1 of the Bogota Metro will operate with 30 trains, each consisting of 6 cars and capable of carrying up to 1,800 passengers, which is equivalent of the capacity of 12 articulated Transmilenio buses. The line will be fully automated and driverless. The trains will operate with the average speed of 42 km per hour and headways of 140 seconds. System safety will be ensured by platform screen doors and onboard video surveillance. The total length of the elevated line is 24 kilometers, with the launch planned for 2028. After decades of discussions, planning and construction, the Belgian city of Liege finally launched a new modern tram line. And by the way, there used to be a tram system in Liege, but it was closed in 1967. The new line is 11.7 kilometers long, has 23 stops, and runs between the places which I will fail to pronounce, from Slussen to Coimbra and Brno, with about 90% of dedicated lanes, with my favorite grass surface in many places. Construction work began in 2018 and the total cost of the project was 430 million euros. In total, the city purchased 27 section low-floor trams from the Spanish manufacturer CAF, 45.4 meters long and 2.65 meters wide, and 18 of them run in the morning rush hour at a frequency of 5 to 6 minutes. So, congratulations to Liege, let the new tram run fast and make passengers happy. Excited crowds gathered under warm and mostly cloudy skies to welcome Sound Transit's two newest light rail stations as the 3.4-mile extension of the regional system pushed deeper into this east side city, a once rural redoubt of the northern tip of Lake Sammamish. This expansion cost a total of $1.2 billion, giving us a price of $218 million per kilometer. The addition of these two stations will also allow the regional commuters to access Redmond's many bike routes, large shopping center, local restaurants, and the 640-acre Marymoor Park, which is the most visited park in King County. The new stations are the first to be built with funds allocated for the $54 billion light rail expansion approved by voters in 2016. In parallel with this, Redmond's residential construction is booming. In recent years, 5,000 new apartments have been built within a half-mile radius of the central station, and another 4,000 are under construction. And now city officials hope that the extended line will boost real estate interest in the area even more. In the Polish capital Warsaw, they have completed the reconstruction of the central square in front of the Palace of Culture and Science, which I talked about in one of my videos. The most noticeable change is that there is more greenery on the square. They planted almost 550 shrubs, over 81,000 bulbous and perennial plants, and 102 trees. Among them there are linden, ash, hawthorn, dogwood, ginkgo, and magnolia, and the tallest trees are more than 7 meters tall. The trees were placed in anti-compression chambers with nutritious soil inside, and water is supplied to them through an underground network of pipelines from underground rainwater collection tanks to foster their growing. About 100 benches were placed under the trees, and the layout of sidewalks and green spaces reflects the network of pre-war streets and the outlines of former buildings. In the Swiss city of Zurich, they opened a bike tunnel under the central train station connecting Kaserner Strasse and Zilke, which is a key element of Zurich's effort to promote cycling. The tunnel, which is about 440 meters long with a 6-meter wide roadway, also offers 1,240 free bike parking spaces. And from this bicycle station, you can get directly to the Zilke crossing at the main railway station. The tunnel allows all types of bicycles, including electric bikes, e-mopeds, and small motorcycles with electric drive, but the speed limit is 20 km per hour for all vehicles. Notably, this tunnel was built in the late 1980s for a city highway or a car highway, but due to public opposition, traffic was never launched and it was remained abandoned all this time. The idea to use it for cycling first appeared in 2011 when a petition was registered in the city. Discussions on the project lasted for 10 years, and in 2021, 74% of Zurich residents eventually supported the arrangement of a bicycle tunnel with the total investment cost of 38.6 million francs. By the way, it is interesting that Zurich also has a tram line that runs through the tunnel, which was originally built for the metro and abandoned for many years because the metro project itself was cancelled. So looks like Zurich is a city of reused abandoned tunnels. The city of Phoenix, Arizona has recently launched an expansion of its light rail system.
No! God, please, no! No!
Which has been in operation since 2008. So from now on, Valley Metro consists of two lines, the A and B, which intersects at a transfer hub in downtown Phoenix. Line A runs from east to west, connecting downtown Phoenix with the cities of Tempe and Mesa, while Line B connects Metro Parkway in the north to Baseline Road in the south, using a 5.5 kilometer miles, of course, section of the Central Avenue, which was built since 2019. Oh, by the way, before the extension there was one line in the city that looked like this. The Valley Metro website says that this new section was originally planned to be launched in 2034, but in reality it started operating a week ago. Strange things happen sometimes. In addition to this, the headways will be reduced to 12 minutes during working hours before 7 p.m. and 15 minutes in the evening, for which 17 new rail cars have been purchased. The new expansion is expected to add over 8,000 daily passengers to the rapid transit system, which currently serves about 35,000 daily riders. Apart from the rail network itself, the project also includes a 110-space parking ride facility on Baseline Road, expanded bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, as well as the planting of over 550 new trees and desert-adapted landscaping to provide so much needed shade. The total project budget was $1.34 billion, over half of which was covered by federal grants. These changes are part of the broader Transportation 2050 plan, which was approved by Phoenix voters back in 2015. This initiative aimed at transforming local public transportation, which includes more frequent bus service, new light rail connections, and significant street improvements. The main funding mechanism for the plan is a city sales tax, which was introduced in 2016. In Stockholm, Sweden, they opened the next stage of Slussen Square reconstruction, which includes the Malaren staircase and the terrace complex with cafes and restaurants. The Malaren staircase connects a large public square on the upper level with the waterfront and the new water plaza, which leads directly to the Old Town. The next project phases, designed by Foster and Partners, will include a new enclosed bus station, the terraces themselves, a new public park, a shopping center and an integrated metro station, further enhancing the waterfront's accessibility by 2028, bringing it to life with shops, restaurants and cultural events. In addition to the central staircase, public escalators and elevators also provide a connection between the upstairs plaza and the waterfront. The public square on the upper level has also been renovated and will become one of Stockholm's largest public spaces for markets and events. The project also will minimize the risk of flooding by significantly expanding the gateway's capacity with integrated flood protection. However, not everyone enjoyed the new space, and some comments claim that the new terraces look too strict and obscure the view from the old town to the facades of the Soder, and that the square itself looks too empty. Nevertheless, the square will soon be filled with greenery, including 28 trees and 3,000 perennial plants to be added this fall. The park, named Katarinaparken, will also be created nearby, which will become the greenest part of Slussen, scheduled to be completed in 2028. If we dive into the history, this place was previously used as a massive traffic interchange. The project for its reconstruction was selected at a contest in 2009. Construction work began in 2016 and it is planned to be completed in 2027. The project cost is approximately 1.15 billion euros. The city of Stockholm is financing the entire reconstruction, with the exception of the bus terminal in Katarinaberget, which is being financed jointly by the city, the region and the state. And we start with
Chongqing, China.
Also known on the internet as the
biggest city on Earth, which you've probably never heard of.
Recently, they opened a giant Chongqing East railway station, which is to become one of the largest railway stations in China. I guess maybe it's even one of the biggest in the world. I can imagine someone in Dubai now going, wait, all the biggest things in the world must be here. Hold my non-alcoholic beer. The new Chongqing station has become one of the city's three main railway hubs and is to handle some of the high-speed and regular trains that will connect the city with Wuhan, Xi'an, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou and others. Here I apologize in advance for any inaccuracies with the numbers, because the information about this project is mostly in Chinese, which, as you can guess, is not my native language, so we have what we have. Construction lasted from 2015 and as a result they built a station with an area of 1.23 million square meters and a length of 538 meters from east to west, with 15 platforms and 29 tracks. Just for a comparison, the central station in Leipzig, which is also quite big, is about 320 meters long. The station has a giant central hall with waiting areas with a ceiling height of 41 meters and shops and food courts to be built above it on the second level. Inside the new station there are also office space and an observation deck overlooking the city. There are still some finishing works to be done, but in general the station is already fully operational. The site on which the new station stands is quite hilly, so to place the new building, one of the hills had to be cut down. Also, part of the new hub is a 3-level underground metro station that serves 4 lines of the city's metro network. The area around the station is still relatively empty, but in the future a new district filled with office towers, hotels, cultural centers and other buildings with a total area of over 1 million square meters is to appear around it. Meanwhile, the Swedish city of Varberg has launched a new 3.1-kilometer rail tunnel and a new train station on it. Varberg stands on the railway line connecting Gothenburg and Malmö, which are the second and third largest cities in the country, respectively, so traffic is very active here. However, until recently, the section in Varberg was one of the few single-track railways on the route and had about a dozen level crossings, which created inconvenience for residents and was a source of increased danger. So, to get rid of this bottleneck, the Swedish Railways built a 2-track tunnel under the city center and a new station at the exit, replacing the old one close by. The new tunnel runs on a slightly straighter path, which should also speed up train traffic. Construction has been underway since 2019 and, if I understood the Wikipedia article correctly, cost about 400 million euros, and if this is true, that's a very reasonable price. Moving the railway underground will improve the city's connection to the sea, while removing the freight station will open up a new space for urban development on the seafront. As for the new station, designed by John Hussen's studio, it is built 150 meters from the old one, has an area of 2,800 square meters and stands directly over the tracks, which are deepened by 10 meters from the street level. Inside there are shops, cafes and services for travelers, and the square in front of the station is decorated with a sculpture by Yuri Markula. Around the station there are stops for city and regional buses, as well as bicycle and car parking facilities. Meanwhile, in the Chilean city of Concepcion, a new railway bridge over the Biobío River has just entered service, and this is one of the projects I've probably followed the most closely in recent times. The new bridge is double-track, 1.9 kilometers long, and is designed for trains running at speeds of up to 100 kilometers per hour and also to withstand floods and earthquakes. From now on, it will carry both freight trains and commuter services of the Biotran system, which connects Concepcion with neighboring towns. In addition to the bridge itself, a new 320-meter double-track tunnel was also built. It passes through Cerro Chepe Hill and links the bridge to the railway station. The launch of this new infrastructure will allow for more frequent suburban train service and enable the operation of paired 6-car EMUs, which wouldn't have been able to cross the old bridge. The new bridge runs parallel to the old one, a single-track metal bridge built in 1889, which had become a symbol of the city. However, its condition had deteriorated significantly in recent years. Floods and earthquakes often caused damage, forcing closure for repairs that sometimes lasted for months. These interruptions caused major inconvenience for residents, which ultimately led to the decision to build a new bridge. Construction began in February 2022 and cost approximately $270 million. The bridge was initially planned with a different design, but the concept has changed during construction, and now it includes the structure that looks like cable-stayed pylons and is planned to be illuminated at night. At first glance, it gives the bridge a modern, iconic appearance, but when you look closely, you can see that this structure is purely decorative. That's a bit disappointing, but it is likely a compromise driven by budget constraints and seismic safety requirements. Another strange detail I've noticed is that to reach a new bridge from the station, trains still have to pass over a short single-track segment, which could become a bottleneck in the future, although it is probably a temporary solution until further upgrades are made. And one more thing I've been wondering, why wasn't the new bridge built on the opposite side of the old one? Cause looks like it could have been a simpler option that avoided building a tunnel at all. But still, despite these details, this is a huge step forward for rail transport in Concepcion, so congratulations to the city. We also have tram news from Slovakia, where a new tram line to the Petržalka district was opened last week. This is a large district built in the 1960s and 70s on the opposite bank of the Danube, and for most of its history it has been connected to the rest of the city only by bus routes that were operating at the limits of their capacity. In 2016 they built a tram line that crossed the Danube, but it only reached the edge of Petržalka, so most of its residents still didn't have access to the tram. And now finally a 3.9-kilometer extension with 6 new stops has been launched, running through the entire district and reaching the edge of the city, which has significantly improved transport links in the area. Construction began in 2021, and the new line mainly has a separate right-of-way with green tracks. Most of the work was completed last year, but a test run revealed some problems, so the full launch of the line had to be postponed. From now on, trams on Line 3 runs to the new end stop every 5 minutes on weekdays throughout the day, and even more frequently during the morning rush hour every 2.5 minutes. A new modern railway station, Prague-Bubny, which was built instead of the old station from the 1920s, was opened in Prague. By the way, it is the first new railway station in the city in 40 years. It is a part of a broader project to improve rail connections west of Prague to the airport and the city of Kladno. The concrete building with 3 platforms is 250 by 50 meters and has a high ceiling with skylights that let light in. Also, if I'm not mistaken, there is an observation deck on part of the roof. Commercial spaces have been arranged under the tracks and the platforms can be accessed by elevators and escalators. Construction began in 2023 and cost around 225 million euros. In addition to the building itself, the project also included the construction of about a kilometer of elevated tracks that pass over the city streets. For the new tracks, they built a concrete bridge, so now the railroad doesn't divide the district as much as it used to. The old station building has been preserved and is planned to house a Holocaust museum in the future. Of course, it is better to evaluate such places in person, but based on photos and videos, the building looks quite handy and functional, and I also like its minimalist style with interesting details. So that's a great upgrade for the... This time we begin with positive news from the United States, where recently began operating a new generation of trains that look like a proper high-speed trains. More precisely, Amtrak has launched the first 5 new Acela trains on the route connecting Washington, New York, Philadelphia and Boston. The launch was originally planned for 2021, but was delayed by testing difficulties, infrastructure constraints and other obstacles related to the COVID-19 pandemic. All 28 trains built by Alstom at its Hornell plant are expected to be in service by 2027, and the cost of the project is $2.35 billion. These new trains will be capable of speeds up to 160 miles per hour and will carry 25% more passengers than the previous generation they are replacing, which has been in service for 25 years. In fact, the trains themselves are designed for speeds of up to 180 miles per hour, but the 160 limit was set due to the infrastructure conditions, so in the future, after the tracks are modernized, this limit can be raised. Of course, this is not as fast as their French sibling, the Avelia Horizon, but it is still a solid number, so maybe these guys now will be able to make a similar video about the American railway.
Okay, that's actually scary.
However, the average speed is much more significant, and now it will be a little bit depressing. The new train covers 457-mile or 735-kilometer distance from Boston to Washington in about 7 hours, which makes an average speed of 70 miles per hour or 110 kilometers per hour. Just for a comparison, the distance from Paris to Marseille is 862 kilometers, and TGV trains cover it in less than 3.5 hours, meaning an average speed of 246 kilometers. Oof, what can I say? Of course, new modern trains are great news and I'm all for it, but without a sufficient infrastructure, unfortunately, they are nothing more than a nice decoration. The fact that they can reach speeds of 260 kilometers per hour makes very little sense if the average speed is 110, so there is a space for improvements, obviously, and to raise the average speed significantly, a huge investment in infrastructure is needed. And I really hope that this is planned. Meanwhile, the first part of the new Metro Mondego transport system has recently begun operating in the Portuguese city of Coimbra. However, despite its impressive name, it is essentially a bus line that will use dedicated lanes in the city and a converted old railway branch outside it. Initially, there were plans to build a light rail system, but the project was later reshaped into a bus line, and I suspect that the main reason was cost reduction. The roughly 5-kilometer route that has now been launched covers 10 stations in the city and will be free until the opening of the section to Serpins, scheduled for the end of this year. In addition to this, the service between Portageam and Coimbra B is expected to be operational by 2026, and when completed, the total length of the network should reach 42 kilometers. The line is served by articulated electric buses built by the Chinese company Chongqing that have an autopilot mode, during which they can independently follow special road markings without driver intervention. Metro Mondego plans to serve 13 million passengers per year and maintain a 5-minute interval between buses during peak hours. Overall, this project evokes rather sad emotions in me because dismantling the rails and converting the railway line into a bus route can hardly be called a step in the right direction. Especially considering that the suburban section is built in such a way that the use of trains or trams there would seem much more logical and safer than operating buses. The first new generation metro train built by Stadler has begun operating on Berlin's U2 line. The new train series is named JK, consists of 6 cars and is about 100 meters long. This is the first new Berlin metro model in 10 years, designed for the narrower U1, U4 lines, and 140 new cars will join the fleet this year. By the way, what do you think of their design? My first impression was that they look quite Japanese. They have something in common with these trains. Meanwhile, passengers have already criticized the new cars for having fewer doors, smaller windows and no air conditioning, and the last one sounds especially sad. What about the appearance of the cars? Opinions are divided. Some people like the clean, functional lines of the new interiors, while others find the design uninspiring and the small windows depressing. Online discussions also mention that the new cars look cheap compared to the previous generations. In general, Berlin is currently undertaking a large-scale modernization of its metro system, and one of its goals is to achieve a reliability rate of 99%. The framework agreement with Stadler covers up to 1,500 new wagons, which can be delivered by 2035, and the contract is worth up to 3 billion euros. So this is the largest fleet modernization in BVG's history. A total of 484 cars from 2 series have been ordered so far, JK for lines U1 to U4 and J for lines from U5 to U9. The wider J series is currently undergoing testing and is scheduled to enter regular passenger service next summer. Meanwhile, the Krakow government has presented a concept for the construction of a metro system and announced that its goals is for the city's residents to be able to use it in 10 years' time. The plan is to build a network with 2 lines, about 29 kilometers long and with 29 stations. The cost of construction is estimated at 3.5 billion euros, which about 40% will be covered by the state budget and European funds. The route starts in Nowa Huta and passes through the Młyński roundabout towards the railway station. And in the area of the Broszka station, the line splits. One branch serves the Jagiellonian University campus in Ruchaj and leads to Kliny, and the second branch ends in Kordvano. Unlike the Warsaw Metro, the Krakow Metro is planned to be completely autonomous. In the process of designing the route, planners analyzed passenger flows, and their final solution differs from the route planned 15 years ago. Now, instead of turning northwest, the line is heading south. Most of the line will run underground, and the trains will be about 60 meters long, which is half the length of those in Warsaw. It is planned that trains will run every 2 minutes and will be used by 280,000 passengers daily. The tender for construction is to be announced no later than 2030, and the metro is expected to be launched in 2035. In Brno, Czechia, the city is looking for a contractor to build a northern part of the new street that will connect the city center with the new railway station. The street will be lined with trees and will have 4 lanes for cars with 2-way bike lanes and wide sidewalks on both sides. A green strip will be created in the central part of the boulevard, which will be maintained until the tram lines are built instead. Also, trees and street flowers will be planted between the bike lanes and sidewalks. Construction is expected to take 16 months and cost about 6.5 million euros. This project is part of a much bigger plan to develop a completely new district called Trnita, covering an area of about 140 hectares south of the city center. Currently, there are only fields, parking areas and small industrial buildings there, but in the future a new multifunctional district is to appear, the central element of which will be a new railway station designed by the Dutch studio Bentham Crowell Architects, which also designed the railway station in Rotterdam. Investments in the new station are estimated at around 2 billion euros and it is planned to be launched by 2035. It will provide greater capacity, better passenger comfort and a more efficient train traffic. The station will be located on a bridge structure 7 meters above the ground so that it won't create a barrier between the northern and southern parts of the new district. The current train station is planned to be closed and its relocation will free up space for parks and recreation. And I hope they will save the old station building itself. Overall, these are very interesting and ambitious plans. I'm really impressed. The next story was quite unexpected for me. In London, they began rebuilding the City Hall building, which apparently had been empty for the last 3 years because the City Hall itself had moved to another building. It was built in 2002 by the project of Sir Norman Foster's studio during Boris Johnson's mayoralty and has become a remarkable part of London's postcard cityscapes. And by the way, the London City Hall rented it. But in 2020, Mayor Sadiq Khan moved the London City Hall to a new building, which this time owned by the city, citing cost reduction as the main reason. Since then, the building stood empty for several years until it was recently purchased by investors from Kuwait, who now plan to convert it into a shopping center. For this, the building is to be completely rebuilt according to the design by the American company Gensler from San Francisco. The facade will feature balconies with greenery and the interior space will be increased by leveling the sloping wall. The spiral staircase inside was dismantled last year and now the glass facade is being removed. Notably, the building was twice nominated for inclusion in the list of architectural monuments in 2022 and 2024, but Historic England stated that although the building is a symbol of the millennium, it is not suitable for listing as it is less than 30 years old. But wait, millennium was 25 years ago. Of course it has less than 30 years. What's the logic here? By the way, it is also interesting how ethical this redevelopment by another company is from a copyright perspective. It is believed that this is only the second case of demolition of a building designed by Foster. The first one was the problematic Hermon Hotel in Las Vegas in 2015. It is hard to say whether it was Foster's best building or not, as this is generally quite subjective, but to be honest, this news disappointed. A new tram line number 27 has begun operating in Vienna, connecting Floridsdorf and Donaustadt. It starts in Strobelsdorf, initially following the current line 26 to Prinzgasse, and from there continues along the new 2.4-kilometer line to Aspern Nord. The route, with a total length of 13.5 kilometers, have 28 stops, 6 of which are new. Along the way, passengers can transfer to 3 subway lines, U6, U1 and U2, the S-Bahn and various tram and bus lines. This creates efficient connections between 2 rapidly growing areas, transporting around 20,000 people to their destinations every day in an environmentally friendly way. Especially attractive is the short travel time. It takes only 17 minutes to get from Kagraner Platz to Aspern Nord. The heart of the new line is the Green Boulevard, which will be free of car traffic and will be used only by public transport, cyclists and pedestrians pedestrians. Line 27 will run on a 800-meter green track here, and cyclists will use a separate two-way bike path to Seestadt. And in addition, 300 new trees have been planted along the avenue. Another feature is the 120-meter bridge near Asper North, which carries the tram over the metro and S-Bahn lines. The new line is almost completely separated from car traffic, which makes it more reliable. During the morning rush hour, trams run every 6.5 minutes, and in the afternoon every 7.5. We have great news from Copenhagen today, where trams have relaunched after 53 years of absence. You know, I always wondered how such a city could be without trams, and now they finally fixed that. For now, the first section has been officially launched, running from how to pronounce this?
Ishøj.
So, for now, the first section has been officially launched, running from Ishøj to
Rødovre Nord.
North with 12 stops. The new system is called Letbane, and when completed, it will be a 28 kilometers tangential line connecting the suburbs of Copenhagen. And in this sense, its function differs from the city railway, which carries passengers between the city center and the suburbs. The entire line is scheduled to be operational in the summer of 2026. The line runs on double tracks on its own right-of-way for almost its entire length, but with road-level crossings along the route. It operates 4-section Siemens Avenio low-floor trams with a bidirectional design. They are approximately 37 meters long and can carry around 260 passengers. This is the third newly built tram system in Denmark, after Aarhus in 2017 and Odense in 2022. By the way, Copenhagen's previous tram system, which consisted of 18 lines, was closed in 1972 and replaced by buses, of course. After the closure, the city sold its then newest Duwag trams to Alexandria in Egypt, when most of them were less than 10 years old, and some of them are still in operation. Meanwhile, in Montpellier, France, they opened a 1.3-kilometer extension of Tramline 1. The new section runs from the previous terminus at Odysseum to Gare Montpellier Sud de France, for the first time creating a direct tram connection between two railway stations, Saint-Roch in the city center and the South Station, which serves TGV trains. The project includes 1.3 kilometers of double-track line, a new terminus at Gare Sud de France, and new cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. The centerpiece of the new section is a 36-meter-long bridge over the A709 motorway. The total cost of the project is around 50 million euros, financed by the Montpellier metropolitan area, the Occitanie region, and the French government. The extended line simplifies transfers between local and intercity transport while improving access to the new Cambacérès urban development area around the TGV station. The Montpellier tram network in general has been operating since 2000 and currently consists of 4 lines with a total length of about 65 kilometers, with another one currently in the final stages of construction and scheduled to launch in December this year. Montpellier Sud de France station opened in 2018 but without tram connection, and this situation was sharply criticized from the very beginning. Until now, travelers had to rely on bus services or private cars to get to the city center. The new extension now closes this mobility gap, and passengers will only need about 20 minutes to get from the TGV station by tram. As for the new district next to the station, in the coming years it will become a place for 14,000 jobs and 7,000 students. The area will include the new Nexus campus, the Innovation Hall, and the Montpellier Business School campus, framed by the 20-hectare park, where around 2,000 trees are being planted. After a year of testing, a new section of the REM network was opened in Montreal, providing passengers with a connection between Montreal Central Station and the municipality of Deux-Montagny on the north side of the city. The new section is 33 kilometers long and has 14 new stations, 3 of which connect to the Montreal metro system. In total, the REM system now has 19 stations and is 50 kilometers long after 7 years of construction, which has tripled its coverage and quadrupled the number of stations in operation. The line is served by Alstom Herbalist driverless trains, which meet GO A4 standards and operate in 4-car train sets, and they run at intervals of 4 to 7 minutes. Overall, it looks like this is one of the biggest transportation upgrades in North America in recent years. By 2027, several more branches will be added to the system, one of which will connect the city with the airport, bringing its total length to 67 kilometers. As of 2024, the total cost of the project was estimated at 9.4 billion Canadian dollars, and notably, the project was initiated and largely funded by the Quebec Pension Fund. However, this upgrade has also been criticized because trains use a modernized urban train line on part of the new section, which therefore no longer operates. But considering that former trains ran every half an hour to an hour and the REM trains run more often than every 5 minutes, I think these are quite positive changes. After almost a decade of construction, Melbourne's rail tunnel has officially opened, which is the biggest transformation of the city's public transport in the last 40 years. It includes 2 9-kilometer tunnels with 5 underground stations: Arden, Parkville, State Library, Town Hall and Anzac, and is a part of a 97-kilometer line connecting the city's downtown with its metropolitan area. The project took 8 years to build and cost about $15 million. No, of course, $billion, not million, billion. The new stations have large spacious halls and 230-meter-long platforms, which allows them to accommodate 10-car trains. Each new station has a unique design, and 2 of them, State Library and Town Hall, were built using the close method under dense urban area at a depth of about 30 meters. Of course, all new stations are designed in accordance with accessibility requirements and equipped with elevators and escalators. As a part of the project, they also ordered 65 new trains. In addition to the tunnel construction, the rest of the line was also modernized. For example, over a dozen level crossings were removed and a 9-kilometer railway viaduct was built. So, in short, this is a very cool and important project that definitely deserves a more detailed explanation. Meanwhile, another important project has been completed in Poland, where the West Railway Station, or Warszawa Zachodnia, which is one of the busiest in the country, was officially reopened after reconstruction. Construction work began in 2020 and cost around 600 million euros. The old worn-out platforms have been replaced by a new modern station with a huge roof covering over 2 hectares, which has been equipped with solar panels. It is also important to note that all work was carried out without completely stopping rail traffic. Trains continue to run through the station, although with some restrictions, of course. The heart of the new station will be a wide pedestrian tunnel about 60 meters wide under the tracks and platforms. It will house toilets, ticket offices, and a bunch of retail and service facilities that passengers will be able to use before or after the train. There are 26 commercial spaces, some of which have been already rented by companies such as Aldi, McDonald's, Starbucks, Rossmann, and, of course, Żabka. However, this tunnel has already been criticized for its entrances being too narrow and inconveniently located. An important element of reconstruction was connecting the station to the tram network. For this purpose, a tram tunnel was built at the second underground level, which is not yet fully completed. The tram stop under the station will be available to passengers in the second half of 2026, when the first trams arrive, initially only from the south side. In the future, trams will also arrive at the station from the north, creating 2 tram whiskers running through the tunnels. Meanwhile, Toronto has launched the new and very long-awaited Finch West Light Rail line, which connects Hamburg Polytechnic with Finch West Station and the Subway Line 1 at the eastern end. The line is 10.3 kilometers long and has 18 stops, and it is the first new public transport line in Toronto since 2002. Most of the line runs on the surface with a short underground sections at the end stops. It is served by Alstom Citadis trams, which are 48.5 meters long and can carry 292 passengers. They are supposed to run every 6.5 minutes during rush hour and every 10 to 12 minutes at other times. A lot of people came to see the opening, and many of them said that they had been waiting for years for faster and more reliable transportation in the northwestern part of the city. This generally seems like a good news, but if you look closer, there are some nuances. In reviews of this event, almost everyone complains that the trams are very slow. In the first few days, it took about 50 to 55 minutes to complete the route, meaning they traveled at a very modest average speed of about 12 kilometers per hour. At the same time, some passengers said that the previous bus route on Finch Avenue was faster and had more stops along the way, which made it more convenient. It seems that one of the reasons for the low speed is that trams don't have priority at intersections and often have to wait for cars to make left turns. And this is despite the fact that the line took almost 10 years to build and cost 3.6 billion Canadian dollars. By the way, if we compare the price per kilometer, it turns out that the line in Toronto is more expensive than the project in Seattle, even though in Seattle the trams run on elevated track and in Toronto they run at ground level and stop at intersections. Although maybe tram priority will be implemented in the future. In general, this technology has been known for a long time and is used in many cities around the world. All you need to do is install sensors that will stop cars when a tram approaches an intersection and let it pass without stopping. So it's more a question of political will, I would say. And this is probably the biggest problem, because just recently in Toronto they were fighting against bike lanes because they take up space from cars and cause traffic jams. So, in short, we'll see what happens next.
A few moments later.
Say, for example, that transit signal priority comes with an increase in speed. That would cause more maintenance on the vehicles. It's going to cause a knock-on cost effect to Mosaic. So it's not that they have an ability to say no to transit signal priority, but they do need to be informed.
So now when everything is already built and the money spent, they started discussing signal priority. Nice. Okay, so today we start with Paris, where they recently opened the city's first cable car line. It is 4.5 kilometers long and connects
Créteil, Villeneuve-Saint-Georges,
passing through
Limay-Brévannes,
and
Valenton.
Provides a transfer to Metro Line 8. At this point, many people may be wondering why build a cable car in Paris with its quite flat terrain. The reason is that the area served by the new line is quite isolated and poorly connected to the rest of the metro area. It is cut off from the rest of the city by railway freight yards, a river and other obstacles, which makes it very expensive and technically difficult to build a metro or tram line here. The total travel time of the new line is 18 minutes, which is much better than about 40 minutes by bus or a car. The line will carry about 11,000 passengers per day in its 105 gondolas, each of which can accommodate 10 passengers. The total cost of construction was 138 million euros, and that's significantly cheaper than a metro, which could easily cost over $1 billion. This is the 7th urban cable car in France, with similar systems already operating in cities such as Brest, Saint-Denis-de-la-Réunion and Toulouse. The very first city cable car in France was built in 1934 in Grenoble. The next news story seems to be the record for the number of comments like "How dare you not mention this" under the previous video. So, a new 130-kilometer Coral-Bonn railway, yep, I know that Bonn is a railway in general, So, a new Koralmbahn railway has opened in Austria, reducing the travel time between Graz and Klagenfurt to 41 minutes instead of the previous almost 3 hours. And it's really impressive. This 6.1 billion euros project was built in several stages, starting with the expansion of the existing main line south of Graz to 4 tracks in 2002. The main construction work began in 2008, and its central element is the 33-kilometer Koralm tunnel, which is the 6th longest railway tunnel in the world. By the way, Koralmbahn in general is the biggest railway line built in Austria in the last century. It is designed for speeds of up to 250 kilometers per hour and has about 50 kilometers of tunnels over one. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and see you next year.